Hi everyone, my name is Lindsay and this is Lindsayka Adventurer, where we are going to be adventuring through some Bible stories for the next little while every Friday. So this week I have been reading through Acts 16 and especially focusing on the character of Lydia. And I just wanted to share with you today some of the thoughts, the things that I've gotten out of this story, some of the revelations that God has given me about it. So first of all, what does the Bible actually tell us about Lydia? So in Acts 16, she's only mentioned in I think like 3 verses, and the first 2 verses really just tell us a little bit about her, and then she's like mentioned at the very end of the chapter when Paul gets out of prison and went to go visit her briefly, just to let her know that he's still alive and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's the first 2 verses that really speak about her that we're going to be focusing on today, and sort of what that tells us. So I don't have it right in front of me. I can grab it. Hold on. Let's open the Bible. Here we go. All right. So it says, "Now a certain woman named Lydia heard us. She was a seller of purple from the city of Thyatira who worshipped God. The Lord opened her heart to heed the things spoken by Paul. And when she and her household were baptized, she begged us, saying, 'If you have judged me to be faithful to the Lord, come to my house and stay.' So she persuaded us." So this is Acts chapter 16, verses 14 and 15. So that's where we're going to be hanging out today. Yeah, so there's a few things that this tells us. It tells us, first of all, that she is a seller of purple. She comes from a city called Thyatira, and she worships God. Yeah, so those are the first things that we're going to quickly look at. So coming from Thyatira and now living in Philippi, I'm going to put up a map right about here so you can see sort of where those two cities are in conjunction to each other. Basically, if you know anything about modern day geography, they'd both be in like Greece or Turkey, sort of that zone. Probably more Turkey for both of them, I reckon. So Lydia is from this place called Thyatira. So when we look at what Thyatira was known for, so places in the Greek and Roman Empire, different cities were usually known for a particular thing. Some cities were known for having lots of philosophers, and some cities were known for, I guess, their type of pottery and different things like that. But Thyatira specifically was known for its dealings with purple dye. So there would have been people who were master craftsmen who were from that place. That's where purple dye, I guess, really was a booming industry in that area. So for Lydia to come from this city and then go to a completely different part of the Roman Empire and have a business with purple dye, we can assume that she would originally have come from one of those guilds of master craftsmen, and that she was really knowledgeable in this, and that in Philippi she probably wouldn't have had as much competition. She may not have had other craftsmen the same sort of area of interest doing purple dye specifically to compete with, and so she may have even almost had a monopoly on purple dye in the city of Philippi. And the thing about purple dye, so these days purple is just another color, and you can get clothes or whatever with purple, just purple fabric, very easily, and we don't think twice about it. But back 2,000 years ago, in the ancient world, purple was a very rare and a very, very expensive color. And it was actually only used for royalty. For senators, senators had to have a purple band at the base of their garments. And also in Jewish practice, I guess, I think it's even in the Bible or it's somewhere, Jewish men were required to have a blue or purple tassel, just a few threads on the corners of their garments to represent their status of royalty by belonging to God. And so, yeah, Jewish people would use it for that purpose. And so this purple was always had the connotation of royalty or high status associated with it. And that's probably because it was so expensive and hard to come by in the first place. Yeah, so for Lydia to be working with purple dye and selling it, she would have been selling to very wealthy customers in Philippi, because obviously, by the looks of this passage, there aren't actually a lot of Jewish people in Philippi. So that's not her customer base. It's actually all the really, really wealthy people. It talks about how Philippi is actually the foremost city in Macedonia. And so it's this colony in this place called Macedonia, but it's also like the city. It's like the capital city. It's where all the fancy people live, basically. So here's Lydia with her fancy stuff to sell, and she's selling it to the fanciest people in town, in the fanciest town in the region. So this is a very wealthy, well-to-do sort of district, and she is rubbing shoulders with all the wealthy people and getting lots of their money for them to be, looking the part. And so this tells us that this woman was probably really good with business. The way that she invites Paul and his friends to come and stay over at the end of this particular passage, she invites Paul and his friends to stay after she gets baptized. That means that she had enough room and means to spend and to have this level of hospitality for these people. So she's obviously quite well to do herself. Another thing that we can learn about her is that when she's baptized, not only is she baptized, but her whole household is baptized. And we can tell with the language used that household doesn't actually mean just like her and her kids or her husband or her grandma or whatever who's living in the house, but it's actually everyone, like her servants, her slaves, the people who did the dyeing for her, like anyone who was either employed or worked under her would have been considered part of her household. And so not only is she convicted to have this relationship with God, but she's also bringing along these other people in her family, in her household, in the close-knit group that she is the leader of. And so yeah, this shows us that she is a leader, that she is an influencer, in fact. She's influencing other people not only in business, but also in salvation, in their relationship with God. As I was reading this last night, as I was seeing how Thyatira is so far away from Philippi and how now Lydia is so far away from her home, it reminded me of the gift of apostleship. An apostle, if you're not really aware, is a sent one. It is the gift of God sending us somewhere else to start new ministries or new businesses or new initiatives that will be beneficial to his kingdom going into all the world. And so this may or may not be true, but it's just what was hitting me last night. And I wonder if Lydia is an example of the gift of apostleship, how she is far away from home, but she's now like this entrepreneur in this new place. She's sent, even before she even knows God, to begin this new ministry. All throughout the first part of Acts chapter 16, we see that Paul and Silas and Timothy and whoever else, they're trying to go into all these different places, but it says that God, like the Holy Spirit, stopped them multiple times. And so they're starting out in this place that's more southeast of where they end up. And they're just walking along or however they're traveling, and they're trying to go to this place and God stops them, and they keep going further and God stops them, and then they go further this direction and then God stops them. They can't go into all these places. But once they get actually pretty close to Philippi, but on the other side of the water, God gives Paul a dream and shows him a man from Macedonia begging them to come and preach the gospel to them. And so he wakes up and he's like, oh, well, I guess this is why we couldn't go to those other places. We need to go to Macedonia. And so they head to Philippi, which is obviously the place to be in Macedonia. And the first people they come across is this woman, because there's no real Jewish base. Like, they're looking for a Jewish community because obviously Jewish people have at least some understanding of what a Messiah is and how that's relevant to them before, they try going preaching to the Gentiles. And so when they get there and they find that there's no little synagogue, there aren't 10 Jewish men in the town to make a synagogue, so there's just a bunch of women, maybe a couple of old guys praying down by the river. Yeah, they come across this group, and Lydia is basically the one who's in charge. It may not have been said that way, but she's the one who is the influential one. She has this place in society where she is a merchant to the rich people, so she is of the highest status in this group, and whether she wants to be or not, she is taking that place of influence and of leadership. Something that I noticed about this thing, influencer, just kept coming out at me. She's an influencer. She influences the people around her. And as I looked at the entrepreneurship, the apostleship, and at this influencer sort of idea, these three things kept being racked up together in my mind. And today there are a lot of like social media influencers out there, like on YouTube, Instagram, whatever else, TikTok, I guess. I haven't checked that one out yet. But there's a lot of people whose actions, whose opinions do influence other people. And I'm trying to remember a quote that I read, or the essence of this quote, where when somebody influences others to do better, to become better, that makes them a leader. Like, your leadership is based on your ability to influence and to lead other people to a better state of being. So we can do this today. We can be like Lydia. We can be this influencer where we don't even realize when God is calling us to start with, to begin doing something that might be just considered a secular business venture. We may not see how down the track that God can use that to bring so many people to Jesus. When Paul and his group turned up in Philippi, they were looking for the most strategic place to start to spread the gospel. And so they obviously started with the little group of people praying to God already. And instead of finding, the man in charge, they found this woman who was a businesswoman who you wouldn't imagine to be the most spiritual kind of person, but in this sense, she was the most influential person based on her connections, based on her business sense, and just the way that she always had to deal with people. And so she had a lot of experience being an influencer, being somebody who knew how to talk the right way to get people to do what she needed them to do. Yeah, so I think God can use us when we're doing things that we consider to be secular, things that we wouldn't imagine are spiritual things, whether it's being a YouTuber and talking about hair products. I'm always looking at curly girl hair products and stuff like that, or, how to make your place look nice. All those kind of things, whatever is your niche, whatever is the thing that you like to do, but you don't think that it's spiritual, God can use that. Whether it's right now, whether it's down the track somehow, whether you build a business out of it first, or whether it's just the way that you're interacting with people along the way and they see Jesus in you, the way that you hold yourself and carry yourself and the integrity that you have. Whatever it is that God calls you to do, you can be an influencer for Him in that space. It doesn't have to look like you're being a pastor or a prophet or whatever else. Yeah, so I feel like God calls us to be wise in our secular business, and He also calls us to be bold with our influence. So just, take that with you today and think about it, and think about think about the people in your life, whether you're a YouTuber or some kind of social media influencer, or whether you're just at home with your family, who is watching your actions, and who can you be a light to, who can you influence, and who can you be bold enough to invite into a relationship with God today. All right, thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments below what you think you can do with this information. Let me know if it was any use to you at all. Thanks. Bye.